Hi there. I want to share this touching story about my daughter with you. So let me begin. Looking back over the years, I remember how difficult life became after my husband passed away, and I was left to raise my daughter, Ameela, who was only 3 years old at the time. We lived in a poor village where food was scarce and hope felt like a distant dream. Being so poor, I had little choice but to turn to my husband's brother, Ashman, for help. He was a prominent religious leader in our community, and I was happy when he offered my daughter and I a room in his house. I thought it was a blessing, but little did I know that this would lead to a different kind of suffering. As Ameela grew, her uncle Ashman was very much against Ameela becoming educated, since he wanted her to focus solely on the religious teachings he preached. I was a timid mother who was raised in a village where the majority of women were uneducated. However, I believed that giving my daughter a decent education would be beneficial. But I felt there was little I could do to convince Ashman, whose beliefs were so rigid that I honestly felt even God could not live by some of them. Over the years, Ashman's popularity soared. He became a figure of reverence, a man who could sway the hearts of the people with his eloquent speeches. In a short period of time, he convinced the villagers and a few wealthy people to build a massive temple. I honestly felt that the amount of money that was poured into this grand structure could have transformed our village, and also it could have fed the hungry. When Ameela reached age 17, she began to express how bored she was of having to do the same repetitive chores of studying the scriptures, cooking, washing, and cleaning the house. I was deeply touched by what she professed, for it was the same way I had felt when I was a teenager. In wanting to make Ameela happy, the following day, I asked her uncle, Ashman, who had just finished praying, if he would allow Ameela to visit a distant relative who lived in the city to break the monotony. Unfortunately, from the moment Ashman heard this, he became furious, claiming that the women who lived in the city had too much freedom and that Ameela would become corrupt if she interacted with them. He shouted, "If Ameela is bored, I will find her a suitable husband so that she would have less time to be idle." I became worried, since Ameela had periodically told me that she would never get married because of the number of times she had witnessed women being beaten and verbally abused by their husbands. In the past, she also expressed her concern about the financial strain some men put on women when they demand a dowry before marriage. 2 days later, while Ameela and I were getting dressed to attend a wedding in the village, both of us were in shock when Ashman declared that he would like Ameela to marry his best friend, named Bishal. Upon hearing who the man was, Ameela started to cry, saying that Bishal is a fierce-looking man who had been married before and had killed his wife a few months ago for simply talking to a man who was not her relative. Ameela then went on to say that days after Bishal was declared not guilty by her uncle Ashman and a few seniors, she saw him proudly showing his friends the knife he had used to kill his wife. About a week later, Ashman brought Bishal to our home to discuss setting a date for Ameela and Bishal to be married. When Ameela refused to marry Bishal, Ashman, in a fit of rage, twisted her arm and threatened to kill her. Filled with anger, Ashman stormed out of the house, with Bishal following closely, saying that he was going to kill Ameela for being rude to him. After the two of them had left, I told a distraught Ameela to go to the room that we shared, while I went to pick up some clothing that I had washed and left to dry. But minutes later, I heard a frantic cry for help. Rushing back into the house, I was met with the horrifying sight of my daughter engulfed in flames as Ashman and Bishal hurried away like cowards. Not wanting to waste any time, I screamed for help and then quickly hurried to the well in the yard to grab a bucket of water. As I doused the flames with water, Ameela cried out in agony, "Oh Lord, tell me what wrong I have done on earth to be treated so inhumanely." Her words pierced my heart. Neighbors rushed to our aid, but the damage was done. The fire was extinguished, but the scars it left behind were indelible. As I held her burned body in my arms, all I could think about was the love I had for my daughter, a relationship that could never be broken, even by death. As we made our way to the city, on the back of a cart that was drawn by 2 bullocks for medical treatment, Ameela poured out her heart. She began to recount the horror of her attack and the betrayal of an uncle she had once trusted. She even spoke of the injustice that permeated our village, where men like Ashman and Bishal could commit crimes without fear of retribution. As Ameela lay dying, she softly said, "Mother, do not cry, for dying in this terrible manner is better than marrying a hypocrite." It was after uttering these words that Ameela sadly passed away. Today, the painful memories of what had happened to my daughter still linger in my mind. At times when I reflect on her life, I can still hear her trembling voice saying, "Mother, please tell everyone what I have endured." Well, this is J.R. Singh saying, bye. I hope you've enjoyed this fictional story. Please subscribe.